Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this panel of the Rewired Summit on Youth Skills and the World of Work. I'm aware a couple of people are still coming in, but we'll continue. So my name is Anna Murru, and I have the pleasure to moderate this panel today. I am the Global Partnerships Manager for VVOB, which is an international organization providing national governments with technical assistance on teacher professional development and school leadership. Our work spans from early education to secondary technical, vocational, and educational training. And this is much in line with the theme that we're tackling today. Now I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists for this session. I would like to introduce them, and let me start by introducing Carmen Nibigira. Carmen, welcome. Carmen is a seasoned tourism policy analyst with over 20 years experience in the hotel and tourism industry in Africa and Europe. She joined the tourism sector by choice and vocational training. For the past 10 years, she has been involved in education and training with a specific target, empowering young women in a sector she calls home with the skills that are catalysts for social and economic empowerment. Next, I will introduce Somaly Hout. Somaly, welcome. Somaly is a young trained chef. She recently graduated from the Academy in Culinary Arts in Cambodia after being supported by the Naomi Tami Scholarship Fund, which provides financial assistance for deserving students in the culinary arts. She has interned at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and at the Madinat Jumeirah Hotel in Dubai. She aims at becoming a leading woman chef in Cambodia. Welcome, Somaly. Now, this side, I would like to introduce Aura Lopez, who is a strategic research and learning advisor for VVOB in Ecuador. She's an evaluation, research, and learning specialist and works together with our partner, the Ministry of Education in Ecuador, in the process of taking the Skilling for Sustainable Tourism program funded by Dubai Cares from pilot to scale through a collaborative and sustainable partnership between TVET systems and the tourism sector in the country. Welcome, Aura. And now, we have Essie Gardner, who is an experienced communication specialist. She currently works in tourism marketing at the Jamaica Tourist Board and is the Director of Global Travel and Tourism Partnership, GTTP, Jamaica, a travel and tourism program aimed at exposing secondary level students to the industry. Welcome, Essie. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is entitled How to Skill the Workforce for Sustainable Gender Equal Tourism. The importance of this topic cannot be overemphasized. Globally, travel, tourism, and hospitality have a strong track record in youth employment and entrepreneurships. In most regions, women constitute the majority of the workforce, but they remain underpaid compared to their male counterparts for exactly the same job. Furthermore, the sector now finds itself at a crossroads. A structural transformation is needed to build a responsible, sustainable, and resilient tourism economy where young men and women not only find work, but work that is fulfilling and dignifying. Work that makes tourism lead in transforming towards a low-carbon future and that makes the regeneration of ecosystems, biodiversity, and communities as measures of success, as was highlighted at the COP26 last month. For this, the sector requires and depends on education and training programs that inspire young people to lead the way for sustainable gender-equal tourism. The speakers today will share lessons, first-hand experiences, challenges, as well as opportunities of transforming tourism so that it becomes a driver of solidarity, of inclusive and sustainable development for both men and women. We will start this session with a round of lightning talks with all panelists, and then we'll delve deeper into the topic of skilling for gender-equal tourism with Carmen and Somaly. This will be followed by a focus on the topic of skilling for sustainable tourism with Aura and Essie. We'll end the session with a round of Q&A. Should time run out, please feel free to approach the panelists directly. So now we'll move into the lightning talks, and we'll go over to Carmen and Somaly, and then Aura and Essie. Carmen, over to you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm definitely a product of our vocational training. 20 years ago when I joined the industry, it was by choice. even though it was the disapproval of my parents to pursue a career in tourism and hospitality, I don't regret any single day of the choice I made. So my career was actually shaped and molded by peers, training, and then also role model in the tourism and hospitality sector. So for the last 10 years, I have been involved in education, specifically for young men and women. Currently, I am supporting a project funded by a MasterCard Foundation in Rwanda for the last 3 years. The objective is upskilling and training over 30,000 young men and women in the tourism and hospitality sector. That's actually very much aligned with the policy of the government of Rwanda to support women and young people in the sector. What that entails, it has to be a policy choice, but also government support toward objectives of supporting young women and the men in the sector. So what we do is the curricular development, reshaping how it's done, and then technical training for teachers and instructors, as well as developing short courses which are tailor-made to give opportunities and a platform for women to attain the level of skills it required. Workplace learning, career guidance, as well as now adopting to the e-learning platforms, that's what's required. So basically, I'm glad to be here to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And it is my great pleasure to be joining you today and being part of this summit. Studying at the Academy of Culinary at Cambodia has been a life-changing opportunity for me, which enabled me to gain practical and theoretical knowledge within the culinary arts, and to finally graduate with a diploma of dual recognition in both Cambodia and Switzerland. On this occasion, I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Piatami, founder of the Naomi Tami Scholarship Memorial Fund. He made it possible for me to access to world-class education, gain the opportunity to find employment within the hospitality sector, and most importantly to me, to be recognized for my skill and ability in the culinary industry. The ACAC curriculum exposes students to a comprehensive range of courses covering the interconnected areas of the culinary industry. Training is taking place in the collaborative spaces with international faculty chefs, where the skill transfer is achieved by practical working on cooking and related activity. Through the years, the ACAC has established a considerably vast number of practical internships, both nationally and internationally. Hence, the student benefit of an existing direct link to industry. As of today, the ACAC has an exact of 50 male to females of student total intakes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Somaly. Now over to you, Aura.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. In Ecuador, the tourism sector accounts for approximately 7% of the GDP. The contribution of the sector to the economy as they enter in the recovery phase is expected to increase. However, we have identified as VVOB that a little connection was made between the curricula and the transferable skills needed by students versus the demands of the sector. This low connectivity, of course, was hindering the possibility for education and training to build these relevant skills and in the youth for sustainable and green tourism development. So in 2018, we started the Skilling for Sustainable Tourism project in partnership with the Ministry of Education and funded by Dubai Cares. This project piloted a solution for skilling youth for sustainable tourism in two areas, the province of Manabí and the canton of Quito. And we built the project in three components that we knew will leverage this change or address this challenge as well. One was training teachers and bringing them up to date in the trends of the sector and the key pedagogical practices that build these competences demanded for sustainable tourism and the green transition in tourism. Then we developed as well learning and content materials that will support teaching and learning, that will have this curricula adjustment paired with coaching from actors from the tourism industry for teachers. And of course, not less important was helping schools to establish a collaborative relation with the tourism industry, and thus helping bridge this gap in the skill and the skills demand offer, opening the possibility for students as well to get real world practice in the tourism sector. I will develop this more in the next questions, of course.
Thank you, Aura. Okay, now over to you, Essie.
Thank you so much, Anna. The Global Travel and Tourism Partnership is a collaboration between industry and education stakeholders. The program started in 1986 in the UK schools, but has since grown to include 16 countries across the globe. The travel and tourism was not always an admired industry, but GTTP wants to attract the best and brightest young minds to the industry because they will continue to shape the industry to become an advocate for sustainable development. We are involved in teacher training. We develop curriculum support materials. We offer internships to students, and we recognize excellence because we believe that this is how we are going to influence young people, their teachers, and the wider community. The major challenge we have found is financial sustainability. That is how resources and devices are distributed across the globe. Many of our learners come from developing countries, and we have found that there's a distinct difference between urban and rural schools and learners, how people relate to connectivity issues, access to devices, and the fact is that males tend to have more access than females. So these are the challenges that we are dealing with. Despite those challenges, we know that young people want to contribute to the development of this industry. They are anxious to have their voices heard and to be able to determine how their actions will impact not just themselves, but the wider community. So GTTP helps to inspire and enable these young people to make the best of the opportunities that are available to them.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Great, so now let's take a deeper dive into the theme of skilling for gender equal tourism. Carmen and Somaly, these questions are addressed to you. The highest status and best paid positions in travel, tourism, and hospitality are still male-dominated, as she has also already mentioned. How can skilling lead to the promotion of fulfilling, dignified, and inclusive jobs for women in this sector?
That's a very good question to be asking ourselves today. Skilling may not be the only solution in the toolkit. I strongly believe that from 20 years in the industry, I worked in the hospitality sector, a very much well-known sector at the top, mainly male-dominated environment. So I will probably pause and say we have to tackle this issue from a skilling perspective, but also advocate for the right environment for women to get the skills needed. And then when I say skills needed, I want to emphasize here on the high-value skills. Here, we know that our industry is not really much paying attention to those skills. When I say ICT, data, artificial intelligence, communication, any other skills, and then when we say soft skills, I always call them power skills. Because if we want to really put together the dignifying and then fulfilling jobs on the table, they have to add value, and then value to the sector, across the sector, and also can be interchangeable. If the industry is suffering from one crisis to another, they could go and then work in other sectors where it's needed. So I'll say skilling for gender equal tourism is much about the policy, the environment, and also on the salary. We needed to be attractive as an industry and pull the right candidates and the right talent in our sector to be competitive on the market as well. And that's what we have been doing for the Mastercard Foundation for the last 3 years. It's to put together a package of incentives to pull the best talent in the sector, which is needing more talent, engineers, those who are aspiring to be in other sectors we make it more sexy, attractive. So the skilling part is on the high value skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Somaly, what is your take on this issue?
Well, basing my observations solely out of my working experience, I have noticed that the private sector is being a significant part in not only being beneficiary of a more tenured, but by directly involving and contributing to further opportunity and an accommodating working environment. Female leadership roles should not only be encouraged, but further promoted through formation, education, and appropriate skill building training, supported by the country's ruling authority in the field. Creating appropriate policy and strengthening technical vocational programs within the field of education. And I agree with Carmen that acting as a standard to be applied and further developed by the private sector when employing the workforce and promoting a progressive and all-inclusive working environment within the tourism and hospitality industry ecosystem. The struggle of helping my family meet financial achievement and being a mother is something I have to face while actually working full-time. But I still dream of being recognized to the contribution I am providing fairly and equally. Thank you very much, Anna, to the question.
Thank you, Somaly. Let's continue with you, actually. And how did your training experiences match the reality you experienced while you were working during your internship and career?
Well, from my understanding, a fast-track career progression is mostly offered to individuals who have undergone technical and specific course of study. In essence, this is being the reason why I have decided to undertake my educational experience at the Academy of Culinary at Cambodia, a place where the synergy of practical and theory content are met in everyday learning experience. The positive wave of expectation and dreams, which the successful learning brought to me by the Academy, was met by the reality of being exposed to an actual career in hospitality, finally to becoming a skilled hospitality employee. But on the other end, everyday life in the kitchen was not matching to what I have learned in school. While working in the kitchen during my internship, I have noticed that the leadership roles is more often given to male chefs and along with it a monetary compensation, which is higher when compared to the job title is covered by a female chef. This is according to what I have experienced. And also in the Cambodian spectrum, for women who are working and studying in the hospital field need to be encouraged, educated, and inspired by a more international and multicultural working approach, where rich skill as an open mind and equality in providing job opportunity. Also, leadership skill and to cope with a fast and technology-oriented world. Women need to be a leading part of this reality. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Somaly, for this touching experience. Over to you, Carmen. Maybe you can also touch more about this issue between different...
My experience, I would say, I've been in the industry more probably 20, 21 years, was shaped by my role model. My first general manager, she was a female, and then she gave me a glimpse of what could be done. 20 years ago, a GM of a hotel, a 5-star hotel, was almost like unheard of. So she inspired me to be where I am, and then 10 years down the road later, I became a GM, and that was a very inspiring journey. Second, after the role model, it was also a time I was working for the Accor Group. The Accor Group had taken a step toward empowering women in leadership positions. So I took a 2-year program for management position, and then as a first in the team, I'm talking about 2005 and 6, female, black, African in the United Kingdom to be given an opportunity to aspire to that opportunity to be trained as a manager. It kind of like shaped me to who I am today. Last but equally important, it was demystifying the role of women in tourism and hospitality in leadership position. Why? Because my peers, female peers, kept telling me, no, that job is not for you. It's a male-dominated role. And I kept pushing. And then when I enter into the sector of education, my role has always been to inspire young women that if you need to sit at the right table for making the decision for others, be bold enough to go for it. Whether it's education, skills required, and if needed, also if you ever work for a government, push for the policy to change for the sector in terms of working environment, salary, and incentives the sector can offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really inspiring, actually. So very many gender stereotypes in the sector.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Many.
Wow.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Now let me turn literally towards Essie and Aura, and we will delve into the topic of skilling for sustainable tourism. So, Essie and Aura, how are education and training providers and systems responding to the drive to make tourism more sustainable? Essie, maybe you can start?
I will begin. GTTP programs, that's the Global Travel and Tourism Partnership programs, are implemented in different ways across the globe. So for example, in Jamaica, we do the program through tourism action clubs. In Ireland, they use Tourism Insight, and there are private entities who run the programs in places like Hungary, India, Russia. What is common is that all our programs incorporate sustainable development goals, and even though the GTTP does not have a single module called Sustainable Tourism Development, it underpins every single sector of the online program which we do. And that program is called Passport to the World. So all the modules in that program are underpinned by sustainable development concepts. Because we work very closely with government institutions, with education and tourism in particular, we are able to support and influence the training programs. In Jamaica, as an example, there's a special unit set up that aims to retrain current employees to ensure that the mindset is one of change and being able to adapt to the influences that are happening in our world today. And at the secondary level, we are helping students to understand that they must be able to adapt quickly, they must develop resilient skills, they must be able to function in a way that Carmen mentioned earlier, using high-tech, high-impact skills as well as the power skills to make a difference to this world. What we also know that in Ireland there's a particular program where they have an integrated approach where learners get to understand how their actions impact the wider community. It doesn't matter the sector or the industry. All our actions must contribute to a greener future.
Great. Thank you. Aura, maybe you can tell us your piece?
Yeah, this is a very important question because, of course, one of the initial actions has to do with policies that support education and training systems to actually bridge the skilling gap. So in Ecuador, the Ministry of Education has adopted a new plan for technical and vocational education just this year. And after long consultation with the stakeholders in education, as well as from actors from the private sector, this plan has clearly advanced the importance of developing green skills. And this is part of the government's drive for sustainable development. It also underscores how important it is to align education and training with the evolving world of work. Yet, I mean, on paper it looks good, it's very well written, but we also know that specifically in tourism education, it is important as well to act on this plan at several levels. So we've been supporting the Ministry of Education to build these high-level connections with the world of work actors to make sure that there is an alliance where they can cooperate and work together. At the same time, making sure that technical schools, and specifically teachers and trainers, are ready to implement this plan. So it goes from paper to reality. So making this happen has involved as well actions from us, like we said previously, to bring the world of work actors from the tourism industry to the schools, to work with teachers, to train them in the latest sustainable tourism trends, and the ministry and universities training them as well in pedagogical practices. These pedagogical practices, for example, include project-based learning, giving teachers the tools to promote sustainable development in curricula from a practical perspective, and most importantly, to make sure that these skills are transferable, that working on transferable skills, working on technical skills with students such as curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration. So teachers are using project-based learning, teaching and learning activities to connect students in technical education, as well with community-based sustainable tourism initiatives, which is the last sort of link that we have made to help the government advance this plan, and to create unique experiences that are community-based and community-rooted, where, like I said, they all can interact, tourism industry actors, students, teachers, and the government around this new plan.
Great. Thank you so much. Aura, we can remain with you. How do you think, how can young people contribute to transforming tourism so that it becomes a driver of solidarity, so it becomes also inclusive, an inclusive approach, it adopts an inclusive approach to development, and how can education contribute to this drive?
From VVOB's perspective and our experience in Ecuador, like I was saying, plus, I think across the world, what we have learned is that skills are important, both technical and transferable skills, but they cannot work in abstract, they cannot work in a vacuum. They need to be rooted to the local context, and youth need to be provided with a vision to understand as well how these skills will apply in practice to the context. So basically in 3 dimensions. So one is clearly understanding what the concept of sustainable tourism means in their communities, and education, doing this via education. Also showing them the potential that it has for income generation, the potential that sustainable tourism carries is for income generation and development. And finally, showing them as well and working with them to better know how to apply these acquired skills to their particular tourism context with a sustainable, of course, and inclusive perspective. In the Skilling for Sustainable Tourism program, we have really channeled our efforts towards enabling learning at the workplace as well, to pair this with learning at the workplace, so that students can get access to coaching and training by tourism sector actors, but also to develop a two-way street relationship, where youth not only are recipients of education and technical and transferable skills, but they can also have voice, but they can also bring perspectives to this sector. And using project-based learning, finally, has been as well something that we will highly, recommend, and where we see most as well results is giving them the opportunity to apply skills like critical thinking, like communication, like problem solving, to create projects that are based on the opportunities and the challenges that they identify in their communities. So finally, an important lesson that we have harvested from this is that youth must play and can play an active role and empowering role as contributors in the development of their communities. And they're ready to do so if we give education and training systems the tools to enable them, and we bridge these efforts with the private sector.
Great, thank you. Collaboration again. Excellent. So Essie, maybe you can tell us more about this as well?
Yes, and I believe that young people want to contribute. They want to be part of the decision-making that is going to make this industry thrive. Training and education must give the skills for our learners to think outside the box and to know how their actions impact the wider society. We have to encourage a new mindset that we don't all have to move to the large city in order to be successful. So we have to encourage the understanding of the value of research and development into what is authentic to the community. Heritage is important, authenticity is important. We have to encourage, as Aura said, community-based projects that will allow for self-actualization while providing a respectable income for the young people. remember that both public and private sectors have an obligation. We have an obligation to show tourism as a full contributor to sustainable growth. And we have to do that through mentoring, through modeling, so that the next generation can take the industry forward.
Thank you so much, Essie. Thank you. Great. At this point, I think we will open for questions. I believe we have a bigger audience now. I don't know if you have any questions. Some of you joined a bit late, but we're talking here about the theme of skilling for the world of work, and some important issues that have come out are the issues of discrimination in terms of remuneration in the sector that still exists. And we have also seen that there is still a big divide between rural and urban areas. We have also seen the importance of partnerships to get the world of skilling to actually meet the demands of the youth. And we have also seen the importance of getting better remuneration in the sector. So I will check now with my colleague if we have any questions. I am unable to see any questions. I don't see any questions here. Perhaps somebody from the audience, if we have some mics, maybe somebody can go around. Do we have any questions from the audience? I don't know if this is working. I believe there are some questions, but I just have not seen them. Maybe I can actually, oh, there is a hand. Great, thank you. Please go ahead. You can introduce yourself as well and address your question to whoever.
Sure. My name is Walid. I'm from Jordan, managing an organization called Partners for Good. My name is Walid. I'm from Jordan. I'm managing an organization called Partners for Good. My question to Somaly, and there are so many girls who are, have an interest deep inside and they want to join the hospitality sector, but they are hesitant to take this step forward. What's your advice to them? What do you say for them?
Hello. Yeah, the question is focused to me, right? How do I advise to the females to the job opportunity? Your question? Can you please?
To join the hospitality
So much
sector.
noise.
To join the hospitality sector.
How to advise females to join the hospitality sector?
Especially the females who are hesitant to take this step, because hospitality, especially in the region where we are, there's so much social barriers, there's so much different things, so they are hesitant to take this step forward. As a young lady, to get over all of that, what's your advice to them?
Okay, this is a good question. I would like to advise to the females who wants to join the hospitality to find the opportunity to have your education, to build your skill and ability before joining the hospitality, because most of the career progression is mostly offered to the one who are educated, like I mentioned on the question that I have just said before. This is very important for the education to the people who get a higher education. It is the way of providing them the skill, technical, and ability. When they join the hospitality, they get a wider, broad opportunity, even they want to work in their home country or abroad. Example, I am the one who was born in a very poor family, and I got opportunity to get scholarship under the Naomi Tammy scholarship, which provide me a 2 years diploma without paying anything, and the certificate is approved both from ASEAN and Switzerland. This is to certify my opportunity. After I graduate, I am being able to work either in my country or abroad for my future building career. My dream is to have my own restaurant in my country, and then to provide people with the tasty food, with a good taste of memory when they come to have food at my restaurant. I can give them a good memory so they will remember, recognize that my restaurant providing them a good service in hospitality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to have an opportunity to ask a question from the audience? Oh, there's another hand up there, please.
Hi, my question is for Aurora Lopez. I am also from Ecuador, and I want to ask, like, what is the strategy or what they have been looking for to give a equivalent education for the girls that are in the rural areas and the girls that are in the city? Because I think Ecuador has a really different system, because our public education is not working like really well, I will say. So I want to know if there's like any strategy or what they will do also with technology for the girls in the rural areas, because I think also our government doesn't give a lot of support in the rural areas or even in the education system. Thank you so much.
Thanks. That's a great question, but it's also very challenging and work in progress. In countries like Ecuador, the gap is really big between education, especially for girls, in rural versus urban areas. And bridging this gap will take many, many years. So what we've been doing is essentially approaching this from both a macro perspective, working with the government into understanding what gender equal education means, but also skilling teachers and helping teachers to also bring this approach to the classroom so that they can identify best ways to help girls vocationally, especially, understand, is this what I want to do? How do I do it? How do I overcome the barriers that were mentioned, which also exist in Ecuador? And another level as well is to create a differentiated approach where girls can also be coached by world of war actors. Where they can identify mentors, coaches that can exemplify some ways of overcoming those barriers and can also bring a vision of, these barriers can be overcome. Of course, it's also important to understand that you cannot redefine what it means to be a rural girl, and that it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to live. On the contrary, we want to promote an approach in which they are able to identify opportunities in their context, and they can stay there, and they can also help develop the local tourism industries that are rural, ecotourism, the many opportunities being offered these days. And I think giving them all of these practical tools, working with teachers, working with governments, and working with the industry sector as well to make sure that they open space, that they coach the girls, that they're willing to show them, a vision of what they can do either as an employed or self-employed girls and women. We will move forward this goal as well. So, but again, still work in progress. We're doing what we can with our government as well.
Great, thank you, Ara, for this. Are there any more questions from the audience? Great, there's a hand over there. Thank you.
Rida Ahmed from ASA and researcher in the EU-RAC. My question to Ms. Aura Lopez. Do you think there are some gaps between the learning and the strategies in Ecuador? Do you think there are some...
Please repeat your question.
Yeah. Do you think there are some gaps between the learning and the teaching in Ecuador?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't speak...
What is the cause, or what is the behind of these gaps, please?
Yeah, you mean learning and teaching?
Yeah, exactly.
Like what is being taught?
Yeah, is there a gap between learning and teaching? Or how can refill this gap to satisfy the truthful, education in Ecuador?
Okay. Yeah, like I was mentioning before, that there is indeed a gap between what's, especially not only the learning teaching, yes, of course, because the teachers all still need to develop certain skills and adopt approaches that will support and enable a better learning experience for the learner. But as well, like we say, matching the curricula and what's being taught with the reality, what needs to be learned in reality to bring forward the tourism and sustainable approaches in tourism. That's where we see the big gap, right? So helping, again, the government to develop teacher capacity development programs that will enable, them to move forward, to bring best practices to the classroom, to connect better with the learners, but also to understand what's going on, and what's being demanded, and making sure that their curriculums are bringing this to the classroom is important. The other thing I think it can be done is to also transcend a little bit the formal education approach and to explore the synergies with the private sector so that they get more hands-on experience, so that they can see, oh, this is how this is being done. So maybe what I'm teaching here is not really matching that. How can I better read and understand the latest developments of the sector, the tourism sector? And how can I make this happen in my curricula so that the learner really gets this sort of skills and knowledge, technical and transferable skills? So I think it's a work of synergy. It's working, not only putting the burden on teachers, but it's also bringing other actors to support teachers, governments, the industry, and then finally as well, giving youth the opportunity to be a part of it, to also give feedback to the teacher to say, hey, this is my learning experience, how we can all work together to make this work, and bridge the demand offered from an education perspective.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have to wrap up. I don't see any more questions. There was one question actually related to the role of mentoring, and I will address it to Carmen, and then I'll wrap up. So Carmen, maybe you can just quickly address the question about the role of mentoring. Do you think mentoring and coaching and having role models should be something that should be ingrained in teacher training or in experiences, internships and things like that?
Yes, definitely it has. And then maybe to come to the question of the gentleman, how do we encourage young women to enter the sector? I think the question was for a chef in the kitchen, a young lady. Definitely, as we have people who are inspiring other people to join other sectors and other trade industries in high-tech, cybersecurity, name it, we need also to see women and then men as well coming forward and encourage others. Because I said 20 years ago, my role model was my GM. She was the first few female GM of five-star hotel. She inspired me to be where I am today. And that was almost like a catalyst to how I chose my career to go into education. I wanted to see other women looking at me and say, how can I be a general manager? How can I earn a PhD in tourism and policy? How can I be driving the sustainable tourism I want? So definitely, I rally all the men and women in the tourism sector, go there, look for the talent, and be the voice and the ambassador for our sector, which is attractive, competitive, and also for some countries, tourism counts very much as a high potential sector for GDP. So our contribution is very highly appreciated. So let's just have the right faces, the right ambassador to join our industry, and then be there to rally the troops behind us.
Great, thanks Carmen, that's very powerful. Excellent, so I think as we wrap up, let us remember the key takeaways for this session, and I would like to name a couple that I have pointed out, that I have seen in my notes. The need for equity in remuneration is one, and also the need to invest more in high value skills, including the power skills that you talked about, the need for fulfilling and dignified remuneration across the board so young people can be enticed to join the sector, but also the importance of scholarships. Scholarships, Somaly is a good example of scholarships working for women especially. but also from a training perspective, the need for teachers and trainers to be more supported by a good curriculum, teaching and learning materials, and partnerships with the private sector that remain essential to the system. I think with that we can wrap up, and I thank my colleagues here for joining me today. Thank you very much for this lovely discussion. Thank you very much. And thank you for you, the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you.